My name is Lily, and I'm 28 years old, living in Vancouver, where the rain comes down more often than the sun shines. You might think that means I've gotten used to the overcast skies, but I haven't. In fact, I've spent this past year trying to find the light in my life again, a mission fueled by my recent heartbreak and my desire to finally break free from my family's expectations. Growing up, I was the dutiful daughter, the one who followed the path laid out for me: go to college, get a stable job, and eventually settle down. But after graduating, I realized the plans they had for me didn't fit the dreams I carried deep inside. Throughout my life, there was a consistent pressure to be a certain way, to live a life that would make my parents proud. It took a breakup with a guy I thought I was going to marry, a relationship that came crashing down with the news of his infidelity, for me to realize that I had tied my identity to what they wanted me to be rather than who I really was. In the aftermath of that heartbreak, I decided to take a leap and move across town into a tiny apartment that hadn't seen love in years. It was a simple studio on the 5th floor with peeling paint and creaky floors, but it represented something to me: independence. I could finally choose what my life would look like without conforming to the expectations etched in the family blueprint. I bought a second-hand chair, painted the walls a shade of seafoam green, and turned it into a sanctuary, my haven away from family events and obligatory smiles. But cutting ties emotionally from my family wasn't as easy as packing up my things and leaving. My parents were always good at making me feel guilty. "You know how much we sacrificed for you," my mom would say, her voice thick with tears. "Don't you want to be with family for the holidays?" I can hear their pleas right now echoing in my mind as I sit at my kitchen table, staring at the sunlight streaming in, something I haven't truly appreciated until now. My mother's call came just last week, faintly tinged with disappointment. "Lily, we're planning your brother's engagement party next month. You wouldn't want to miss it, would you?" I should have wanted to be there for Daniel, my younger brother, but all I felt was dread. Once again, I had to play the role of the dutiful sister who pretended to be excited for the same old family drama. I wanted to scream, but settled for quietly declining. "I'm sorry, but I can't make it." I could almost hear the silent judgment through the phone. It wasn't easy to turn down an invitation meant to celebrate my brother's joy, but my heart felt heavy with the weight of unfulfilled expectations. It was in this moment of turmoil I received an unexpected invitation from an old college friend, Sophia, who had heard of my recent heartbreak. She wanted to reconnect over an art retreat she had organized out in the mountains. I almost batted it away, thinking that I needed to stay near my phone in case family drama erupted, but something inside urged me to go. Perhaps everything would prove too overwhelming, and a quick getaway might just be what I needed. So I said yes and packed my bags for a weekend of renewal. The retreat turned out to be nothing short of transformative. Surrounded by strangers who quickly turned into friends, I felt delving into my artistic side release emotions I had long buried. We painted, we shared, we laughed, and for those 3 days I no longer felt like the weighed-down daughter. I got lost in my own canvas, letting each brushstroke liberate me from the shame and the guilt. I channeled my pain into the colors I splashed on the page, creating scenes of beauty and heartbreak entwined. On the last day, as I stood before my painting, a representation of the ocean swallowing the sun, I felt a surge of clarity wash over me. I realized that I didn't just need to physically break from my family, I had to emotionally detach as well. They wouldn't understand why I was doing this, why I wanted to carve out my own identity, separate from their love. Returning to Vancouver, I felt like a brightened version of myself. I didn't want to hide anymore. I was tired of keeping family expectations at the forefront of my life, and this new sense of freedom urged me to confront them assertively. I knew they would respond with anger or guilt, but I was tired of living in pause. A week later, I returned the comfort of my own apartment. As I stood in the middle of my living room, I sent out an email to my family with a simple yet firm subject line: "Setting boundaries." I carefully laid out my thoughts, explaining how often I had felt overlooked in our family dynamic and how I desperately needed to breathe. I talked about wanting to take a moment to find myself, to embrace my imperfections without comparison to those around me. Little did I expect my mother's reply to hit my inbox at 7 a.m. the next day, subject line simply stating, "What's wrong with you?" I took a deep breath, my pulse quickening. As I read through her words, I could see the layers of drama unfurling before me, a heavy monologue accusing me of abandoning my family while seeking unreasonable independence and daring to cut ties too harshly. I knew I had triggered that old familiar knotted feeling in my stomach. The guilt of doing right by myself started to creep back in. But instead of folding into guilt, I took back control. I drafted a new email. Mom, I understand you're upset, but it's crucial for me to create space for my individuality outside of the family's expectations. I appreciate all you've done for me, but what I truly need now is time. Time to heal and redefine who I am. Weeks passed, punctuated by defensive replies, moments where my family reached out in anguish or confusion. Daniel compared me to an ungrateful child, while my father's logic tugged at my heartstrings, lamenting how the family had always been there for me. My mother swore every nuance of distance would lead to regret, claiming I'd look back on this and want to come home. Yet each message solidified my resolve as I refused to buck under the weight of their disappointment. Then came a call from Daniel, a call that would ultimately shift the tides. Lily, you're being selfish. You made this choice to cut ties with us, but I just got engaged, and I need my big sister by my side. Will you really bail on all of us just because of a few disagreements? As he spoke, I realized how tired I was of feeling like the villain in my own story. Their overreactions had been feeding my self-doubt, and now I had an opportunity. I stopped him mid-sentence. Daniel, stepping away doesn't negate my love for you or how much I want to see you happily married, but it also doesn't mean I have to lose myself in the process. I can't promise to be anyone but me. I hope you can accept that. His silence lingered, almost a palpable understanding resting between us. I want you to be happy, Lily. I just want you in my life. I hope we can work through this. This was the bond I had longed for, one grounded in respect for our different journeys rather than obligation to each other. It was a huge step for both of us, crafting a sense of openness that hadn't existed before. With the small victories won over the next few months, my family began to accept my absence. My mother would send the occasional text, often sharing photos of Daniel and his fiancée making family memories at our old gathering spots. But I learned to keep my distance. I cherished my autonomy more than the weight of familial guilt. As summer unfolded, I found more creativity in my routines. I began to host my own little art nights, inviting friends over to rediscover life through colors and canvases. I even started selling some pieces at local artisan markets, earning not just praise but validation that I had been starving for years. And then came another call, this time from Mom. Lily, it's time for Daniel's wedding. You need to be there. I could hear her pleading through the phone. It wasn't a request anymore. It was an order dressed up with family love. Gathering my courage, I said confidently, I'll attend the wedding if I'm made to feel welcomed rather than pressured. I want to support my brother without sacrificing who I am to make you comfortable. Silence lingered on the line. A silence that felt different. A silence that said maybe she understands now. In the weeks leading to the event, I practiced my boundaries with my family. I marked the date on my calendar but promised myself it wouldn't rob me of my joy. When the wedding arrived, I wore a vibrant dress, my hair cascading freely over my shoulders. I scanned the room filled with familiar faces, but sought out my brother's. With that long-awaited feeling of pride swelling in my chest, I found him, and we embraced, laughter punctuating the tension we'd mended over the last few months. Navigating the celebration felt invigorating, and in a room filled with noise, I finally felt I could breathe. As I danced and laughed with friends, I realized, in that joyful moment, I had reclaimed pieces of myself I never wanted to give up. The next morning, I opened my eyes to the golden light of the sun spilling into my apartment. I didn't feel the shadow of guilt hovering over my heart. Instead, strength rooted itself deep within me. I sat on my balcony surrounded by watercolor hues streaked across the sky, reflecting on how far I'd come. Freedom is not the absence of obligation, but the ability to choose unapologetically, I whispered to myself, eyes tracing the skyline. I had built not just a life for myself, but a life that felt authentically my own. So what do you think of my journey? Did my choices resonate with you? I believe we all have a story worth telling, and sometimes it takes stepping away to find the voice buried deep inside. If you've faced a moment like mine, share it with me in the comments, and let's reflect together. And remember, discovering your own path is a journey that's endlessly worth taking.